Hi, this is Lindsay, one of the co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
You're listening to Catch Up, an official news production of Public House Media.
Today is June 5th, 2020, and it's time to catch up on the news that you need to know about.
Today, we're helping you catch up on restaurants nationwide slowly opening back up, Leah Michelle's Twitter scandal, and a bit of good news today.
All of this and more with correspondent Bryce Burge. We're your hosts, Anna Herman
and Kylie Thompson. Welcome to Catch Up. The United States Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, is on shaky grounds with the White House after breaking with President Donald Trump over his response to the protesting. Here to shed more light on this topic is official Catch Up correspondent Bryce Burge. Thanks for joining us today, Bryce.
Thanks for having me.
So, Bryce, this is a developing story, but Wednesday, United States Secretary of Defense Mark Esper said that he does not support invoking the Insurrection Act. What does that mean, and what would it look like if it were to be invoked?
So the Insurrection Act of 1807 is the full act that is in play here. It provides major exception to the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878, which allows the use of military personnel under federal command for law enforcement purposes inside the United States. That's domestic usage. It's been a while since we've used it, but in this case, it's something that Trump is trying to use to bring back peace and stop a lot of the protests that are going on in places across the country right now with the George Floyd protests. The closest example of how it would look is actually right now in Washington, D.C. As a district, the Washington, D.C. area has a lot of other aspects to it that a sovereign state would not have within inside the United States of America. So you can see sometimes where you'd see federalized National Guard troops, or sometimes it would be a different branch of the military, depending on which group approved the Insurrection Act, depends on which force of the United States military would be enacted in this case.
And when was the last time that a president brought in the military to enforce order?
That would be the Rodney King riots in 1992. It was in Los Angeles. It was one of two times that George H.W. Bush enacted it. The previous time was actually in disorder after a hurricane. Before that, though, the other aspect of it is that states can request the Insurrection Act to be enabled. And in that case, the last time that a state did not request the Insurrection Act was back in 1963 to enforce the desegregation of Alabama public schools. Actually, the last three times that a state did not request the Insurrection Act to be enacted directly related to desegregation aspects in different states, in Arkansas with the Little Rock Nine, Mississippi with the Ole Miss riots, and Alabama with the public schools. So given the fact that the states that are having these most violent protests do not want the Insurrection Act brought to their state, it would mean a major aspect of political history over time in the United States if it were to be brought up with the political nature that started these riots in the first place.
Gotcha. And then do you have anything else to add about this story or anything else that you would like to touch on?
Well, I think right now to have Secretary Esper make those statements, it's put him on shaky ground in the White House. It is something that was a little bit expected given Esper's unhappiness of almost being a patsy, is the way that he kind of described it in interviews afterward. So now that he's taking that opportunity to distance predecessor in General James Mattis, as a former defense secretary that resigned over how President Trump handled issues in Syria, coming out hours later and calling out President Trump for threatening to use the Insurrection Act, it's caused a major public display of dissonance within the White House in terms of military force used on domestic soil.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for joining us today, Bryce.
Happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Restaurants nationwide are beginning to reopen their dining rooms after months of being closed or only offering takeout services due to COVID-19. Restaurant owners are striving to give their employees hours and people the opportunity to come in to the restaurant from out of their homes while keeping employees and diners safe and healthy.
Masks, gloves, and new sanitation methods are being used, but one major thing the restaurants are beginning to incorporate is the use of digital menus. Card payments are also being highly encouraged or made mandatory to limit the amount of cash being exchanged, as it is one of the dirtiest, germiest things that we touch daily.
According to CNN, restaurants such as Starbucks, Popeyes, Burger King, Olive Garden, and Tim Hortons are working to ensure safety of employees and customers through mobile app payments, as well as contactless payments made on sanitized tabletop kiosks.
The CEO of Starbucks, Kevin Johnson, stated in an open letter in early May that he believes mobile payments are the payments of the future. However, some cybersecurity experts caution that consumers should be wary of sharing data with restaurants in exchange for a more convenient way to order. Features such as tracking location could result in more targeted ads, said Brian Vecchi, field CTO for the data security company Varonis.
For instance, customers may get an alert for a product promotion as they walk past a restaurant, which could be unsettling, he said. A few years ago, Burger King let app users unlock a 1-cent Whopper promotion when they drove within 600 feet of a McDonald's. It was a way for the chain to poke fun at its rival while also getting people to use the Burger King app. We will have to wait and see if cash will become obsolete. Known for her iconic role as Rachel Berry, former Glee actress Lea Michele is under fire after a Twitter controversy began earlier this week. Michele tweeted on June 1st, "George Floyd did not deserve this. He was not an isolated incident, and it must end. Black Lives Matter." Once this hit the airwaves, co-stars took to the internet to share their experiences with Michele.
Samantha Marie Ware and Alex Newell are just some of the Glee actors who have come forward and commented on Lea Michele's microaggressions during filming. Amber Riley, an original Glee cast member who played Mercedes Jones, tweeted support for cast members coming out against Michele, with not a statement, but with gifs, showing her sipping tea and laughing.
Since receiving all of this internet hate, Lea Michele took to her Instagram a few days ago to address the incidents, stating, "When I tweeted the other day, it was meant to be a show of support for our friends and neighbors and communities of color during this difficult time, but the responses I received to what I posted have made me also focus specifically on how my own behavior towards fellow cast members was perceived by them. As a fan of Glee and Lea Michele, I patiently wait to see what happens next." Moving on to good news, British Vogue found a way to honor some essential workers who have been putting their lives at risk amidst COVID-19 by putting them on the cover of their July edition. This month's British Vogue features a midwife, a train driver, and a supermarket employee instead of the traditional supermodels one would typically see in the magazine.
British Vogue's editor Edward Enneful took to Instagram to discuss his decision to honor essential workers in this unique way, stating that he wanted to pay homage to their bravery and dedication to helping others during this time. Enneful stated, "But as our nation perseveres against COVID-19, we find ourselves leaning not on the powers that be, but on ordinary people and their extraordinary strength and kindness."
It's so wonderful to see organizations honoring our everyday heroes during these times. Thanks for catching up on today's news with us. I'm Kylie Thompson.
And I'm Anna Herman. Please be sure to catch up with us again on Monday, June 8th.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts.
We appreciate you listening to Catch Up. For even more content, follow Catch Up Digital on social media. Just search for @TimeForCatchup.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the stories we covered today. Just use the hashtag #PassTheCatchup on social media.
Catch Up is an official production of Public House Media.